Beyond this infrastructure being competitive today, it requires an intensive focus on the business climate and tax policy. In a global market that is increasingly tight for investment and jobs, we must ensure that Georgia is well positioned in comparison to our peers. With that in view, at this event last year, I announced a public-private partnership, the Georgia Competitiveness Initiative. I asked our Economic Development Commissioner, Chris Kaminsky, and Chamber President Chris Clark to co-chair the initiative. 23 business leaders representing Georgia's regions and industry sectors were invited to join us in this undertaking. And 14 state officials and local officials were both ex officio members of this undertaking. I want to thank so many of you in the room today for the role that you played in this initiative. It was a very productive effort. We focused on the key factors that drive growth across all industries and throughout the state. They are business climate, education and workforce development, innovation, infrastructure, global commerce, and government efficiency and effectiveness. These are the key metrics that site selection consultants use to evaluate locations. And when we get it right in these particular areas, that means that we are beating out our peers in the region and around the globe. With the goal of receiving meaningful, broad-based input, our outreach plan included an online survey conducted by the Carl Vinson Institute of Government at the University of Georgia. This gave us access to a large cross-section of stakeholders, and the results were a very comprehensive portrait of what is taking place across our state. We gained a good understanding of Georgians' perspectives on what we must do as a state to improve schools and to improve the business climate. Our outreach also included stakeholder meetings in Georgia's 12 regions, which brought business, community, and government leaders across the state together at one table for productive discussions. In all, the response to the Competitiveness Initiative was overwhelming. More than 4,000 Georgians representing large and small businesses, representing rural and urban communities in all 12 economic development regions, and representing every industry that calls our state home, made their voices heard. From that extensive process, the Georgia Competitiveness Initiative Task Force developed a set of tax structure proposals that we believe will make Georgia a better place to do business. We believe that this will result in more Georgia companies expanding their footprint here. First, we are proposing the elimination of the sales tax on energy used in manufacturing, a move that will align us with many of our top competitors. Because the sales tax is intended to be a tax on consumption, it should not be applied to business inputs. In an age of much higher energy cost, this will impact a large component of manufacturers' overall cost structure and will vastly improve the competitive position of the producers in our state. Today, in executive offices right here in Georgia, business leaders are making business decisions to expand manufacturing activity and facilities in neighboring states. Every time they make that decision, we miss out on new investment in our communities and new job opportunities for Georgians. Secondly, we are proposing sales and use tax exemptions for construction materials used in projects of regional significance. This is an important business climate issue, and we need the ability to authorize this exemption when competing for projects that are creating a large number of jobs here in Georgia. You know, when it comes down to Georgia versus Virginia or Florida, the competition is tight. It often goes down to the wire, even into overtime. And quite frankly, folks, this is one field goal that Georgia cannot afford to miss. This policy change will also allow local governing authorities, be it a city or a county, to exempt the local sales tax to bring projects to their community. The result is simple but powerful. Local governments have options to incentivize investment and job growth. The third piece of our plan will be to restructure Georgia's job tax credit and quality jobs tax credit program, programs that were created in 1994 at a time when the competitive landscape was far different than the one our businesses operate in today. This morning, I am proposing a modernization of our job tax credits that will better incentivize small business growth and help every Georgia community compete with their regional peers. The present tax credit system is based on the mistaken notion that Atlanta competes with Rome or even Metter for jobs. It doesn't. What we need is a tax credit program that embraces the realities on the ground, that Atlanta is competing with Charlotte and Dallas, and that Floyd County is competing with operators just over the state line for a manufacturing facility. The current incentive structure has created a situation in which many cities and counties are not competitive against comparable locations in other states. These improvements honor the commitment that we've made to rural areas of the state. We will continue to offer companies rich incentives to locate in our neediest areas. Not only are we focused on bringing jobs to Georgia, we're focused on bringing quality jobs to Georgia, jobs that raise the standard of living, jobs that improve the quality of life for our citizens. In 2009, the legislature created the Quality Jobs Tax Credit, rewarding companies that bring in high-paying positions by basing the reward on the salary of the new jobs created. For existing Georgia operations and for those considering locating here, they receive these credits if they create jobs that pay wages that are at least 10% higher than the average county wage. This has proven to be a valuable tool in recruiting companies. But up to now, companies were required to create 50 or more jobs to qualify for the credits. We are proposing to decrease the quality job creation threshold from 50 jobs to 15. This will reshape the landscape in Georgia for small business owners. Most companies now listed on the S&P 500 began with 50 or fewer employees, and we need to make the changes that will ensure more of these small, promising businesses are choosing to call Georgia home. This will help more small businesses get off the ground in those critical early stages. Again, to the many of you in this room who played a role in this process, thank you for helping us develop a forward-looking strategy for economic development. Today, I have focused on a collection of infrastructure projects and policy changes that we believe are integral in an effort to create a more competitive Georgia. At the same time, I want to assure you that we remain focused on our number one priority of creating the workforce of tomorrow. In fact, during the Competitiveness Initiative's regional meetings, the business community consistently stated that education and workforce development was their top priority. I share the business community's belief that Georgia's long-term prospects for economic development hinge on what is taking place in our classrooms. For that reason, my State of the State address this evening, 7 o'clock, by the way, on Georgia Public Television, will largely be dedicated to education and investments that we propose and are now making to improve the schools right here in Georgia. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your input in our job creation efforts. And thank you for your partnership in creating a brighter future for this state. As you can tell, the sum total of all these proposals is to fulfill the goal I made and stated earlier, and that is to make Georgia the number one place to do business. I know that you share that goal. This is something that we can do, and with your help, we will do. Thank you.